Thank you everyone for joining. Marcus, are you good to go? You're all ready to go?
I am all ready to go. How's it going, everybody? Let's see. I'm going to open up the chat here. Are we recording right now? Just wanted to check on that.
Yep, all recording. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining.
Okay.
Marcus is going to give us an awesome presentation today. And yeah, Marcus, take it away.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin. Hi, everyone. I'm Marcus. I work for Edge and Node. I do dev relations and dev success. And this is going to be a presentation on file data sources, really just giving an overview of a repo that I created with three different learning opportunities for everyone here, just to kind of grok exactly what's going on with file data sources, how you could implement file data sources into your project and get IPFS metadata into your subgraphs. And this is really just for you. So if there's anytime there's any questions, please just put them in chat. I'll be monitoring that as best as I possibly can. So to get started, what I'm going to do is just drop in the repo I created so you guys can just start perusing what this really is. And I'm going to share my screen as well, and we can get into it. Okay. So first and foremost, can everyone see my screen? Just want to just double check here before I start talking in chat. Could I get a thumbs up or something like that? Okay, cool. Awesome, cool. Let's get into it. So this is a longer presentation. I'm assuming everyone in here understands a little bit about the graph and understands how to just understand the framework of the graph, which I go through in this presentation. That is in the repo. I'm just going to skip this beginning part of the introduction to the graph because I'm assuming people here do have an
Real
understanding
quick,
of the graph.
Marcus, we're seeing your Discord page, so I don't know if you're trying to share something specific. Maybe we'll get the wrong monitor.
I am. Okay, so that's good. Thank you for pinging me on that. Let's go ahead and try this out. Green. There we go. Let's try this. Now can you see my Google Slides?
Yep, we're good now.
Cool. Awesome. So this is part of a presentation. File data sources bring off-chain data to subgraphs. If you would like to get an introduction to the graph, feel free. That is the kind of the beginning third of this presentation, as you can see on the left. I'm just going to go right ahead into file data sources, which is the purpose of this presentation. And we'll also go into the repo. So really quickly, file data sources. Let's go ahead and just understand. And right now, of course, the graph is indexing blockchain data. It is now being able to, in a parallel fashion, index IPFS information. So all of those are able to go to graph node through file data sources in parallel, which is really, really, really cool. Yes, mind-blowing, of course. And then for use cases, if anyone here would like to dive into various use cases of file data sources, check out this blog post from Craig Thuro. He is really providing some great ideas on how IPFS can be used for bringing in off-chain information into your subgraph and having that be useful really right now. But of course, the use case today I'm going to start with is something that's relatively easy to grok, which is using NFTs and understanding how we can go ahead and get that metadata. So for today's workshop, we're going to build an NFT. It's already built, but we're going to go over the NFT subgraph with file data sources. The three things we really need to understand how to do this is we need an on-chain event, and we're going to look at a smart contract transfer event, which will trigger a new file data source template, and that will begin the process of number two, gathering that off-chain metadata. And it will search and index the off-chain metadata based on the on-chain event triggering. There's a bunch of triggering going on for this search to begin on the IPFS nodes, and that's really the thing I want you to take away from this. And from that, once you have the on-chain event and the off-chain metadata that you would like to really connect, then you can build your subgraph very effectively. That's number three. And one thing that you should pay attention to as I'm going through the code is that the IPFS metadata and on-chain data throughout the subgraph could be separate, just really making sure that we have that separated. And then, of course, you could link that information if you would like in the schema, but making sure that the information is separate. That's going to be a constant theme throughout this. And so this is just really quickly, I grabbed an NFT for this repo. This is a Beans NFT, and this is the transfer event that I'm looking at, and this is the IPFS metadata that I'm looking at. And you'll see that reflected in the subgraph itself. This is the repo that we have that I already linked to. So with that being said, let's just hop right in to the code. I also did put a little bit of a reference here. If some of you are visual learners and color learners, just a quick summary of what's going on, and we're going to go through this right now. Let me check the chat to see if there's any questions so far. No questions. Awesome. Let's get into it. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this is directly from the workshop repo that I sent to you guys, and let's walk through this together right now. I pointed the subgraph in the CLI to this smart contract, which automatically brought in the start block, and I had all of the entities that were from the events initially populated here, and I really just got rid of them and only wanted to understand the token and the owner. So that's the only two entities being created in my subgraph. And then the only trigger that I really want to take a look at here, the only event that I want to take a look at is this transfer event, which is going to be my trigger to actually begin the templating of the metadata search right down here. So just understand there's a high-level overview, subgraph.yaml, and then we have the entities I'm looking at, and these are from the on-chain information that I'm going to be eventually taking a look at. And then also we have the event handler that will be the trigger for this templating to get the metadata. And already we're separating the metadata from IPFS and the on-chain information. All right, so it's already important to begin that separation from the very beginning. One thing I did put in here that I think is very important for anyone who's going through IPFS metadata is the full text search. Maybe not very important, but I think very cool in that if you are going through metadata, there may be full text and searching advantages to have in your subgraph where you can go ahead and just query it with any type of full text, and that's quite powerful. So I put that in here. I think that's pretty cool. So let me check the chat here. Any questions so far? No questions. Let's keep on going. Any questions, feel free to reach out. I will just keep on checking back and forth. So from here, we've got the high-level overview of this smart contract as well as what we're looking for. Let's go into the mapping. Okay, so I imported from the schema in here as well as got the token metadata template, got the entities in there, and then I hard coded in the hash for the IPFS metadata. This is going to be in here because what we need to actually create is, in the end, to trigger the token metadata template, is we need the IPFS hash and the URI combined. So we need to do that to trigger the templating. And in the end of this, I will show you guys how you potentially could create a dynamic IPFS app using data edge smart contract. Right now, this is static, and that's great, but the dynamic one I think is really cool, and props to the developers out there. I believe this is Matthew who created the data edge contract, so shout out to him who created this. I think I see you in chat out there. Let me see. Yeah, I think you were in there for a second, but yes. Oh, you're there. There you go, Matthew Darwin. I believe you were the one who created this, and if not, I might be mistaken, but some of our team members created a really cool data edge contract we will go through. So let's get into it. We have the IPFS hash right here that's hard-coded that is reflective of the IPFS hash right there. I've got the live one right there. And we need to find out how we can create a template that will have that hash and then also this beans metadata and then also the number at the end right there to continue on with our templating. So let's go ahead and do that right now. If the token is created, we just load it right in. But if not, let's go ahead and create it. We have the new token entity. And then from there, we say, okay, we got the owner. We assign that from the event. And then we begin the creation of the templating trigger. So we have the beans metadata that was reflected in the IPFS right there. That is right there, just copying that through. And then also we need the token ID and put that to a string. And then now we have the IPFS hash URI, which then we create all the way through. We just combine the two with the IPFS hash, which was hard coded right there. And then we have the token .token URI, which we are going to then have from earlier. So And then, so now we assign the information to our entity, and then we begin the trigger right there, the token metadata template, and then we pass in the IPFS path.uri, which there it is. It's going to start the data source in that way. So then also I wanted to create a reverse lookup. So we have a user here, and that is going to allow us to then see if a user has any selection of tokens. So that's everything on chain that's going on. Let's go ahead and continue on to the metadata and see how now that the metadata can be searched for due to the triggering of the on-chain event, how is that being handled? How do we start getting that information? Let me see if there's any questions first. Where do you find the IPFS hash that's hard-coded on the top of beans.ts? Great question. You can go right into here, and you can see for this instance, it was not Ethoscan, it was OpenSea. And let's do that live. Beans official. And this is for, I just clicked on any one of the beans, and then you can go down to details. And then from here, we have the contract address and then the token ID. And then I pulled that up, and there it is right there. So that is the hash they're able to begin searching for. Great question right there. You can find that on OpenSea and going right through to the NFT. Any other questions? That's it? Okay. Let's keep on going. So once we have that triggering begin and the templating begin, we have to handle that data. We're bringing that in as bytes here. We got that in here, and we're handling that metadata that's being piped in here. And then we have to just go through that file. We have a file, an IPFS file here. This is a JSON file. And we have to be able to actually parse through that information and then apply that to our entities and bring that into our entities. In the case of our subgraph, it's a token metadata. So we have a new token metadata right there that is being brought in, as you can see from the schema. That is our entity. And then we have that as a data source. That is new templating that's being brought in. So now that we have that, let's go ahead and parse through it. So we have a JSON, and then we just convert it to an object. And then from there, we can go ahead and start gathering that information and do all the null checks, boom, 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 and then start assigning the name and the image. We bring that in from the token metadata, and then we continue on. A lot of null checks. There's always null checks. So then we have an attributes array. And then we have the attributes array. Just in this case, I had to do this because, as you can see, we have an attributes array, and I wanted to just loop through this. Sometimes the attributes are 8 attributes long, sometimes 3, sometimes 5. It just depended. So at this point, I just looped through and just populated. So as you can see, this, we had we had a looping through the attributes array. And then once again, we had to go ahead and just start checking to see if we have a trait type and a value. And then if it's 0, if it's 1, if it's 2, we just have a switch that goes through and then sees if case 0, case 1, case 2, for example, is 0, 1, 2. We just simply assign a trait type 1 to trait type to string, value 1 to string, and then we just continue assigning all the way through. Then we save it, and then we have our schema. So let me go ahead and check on Discord. No questions. We'll keep on going on. So all of that work from the subgraph.yaml, which really was the high-level overview, was then put into logic and then mapped appropriately through here. And then now we have our GraphQL schema that we're able to go ahead and see how our data is organized. So as you can see, we have the token, which is the on-chain information. We have the token metadata right here, saved as IPFS hash URI. And that is just linking, and that's very helpful to link. But once again, we have to keep these separate because this is the on-chain information, and we have the off-chain information, and all of that connection through the mappings was put through here, all of that looping dropped in. And then we have the user, which we have the reverse lookup, which we can see, hey, if we have a user, which tokens do they actually have? And that is the derived from directive. That is pretty dang cool. And then this is a full text search, which I think anyone here, if you have not tried full text search, please give it a go. It searches all of the trait type 0, 1, 2, all the way in the value, all the way to 8, for any search that just regular plain text search that you'd like to apply. to this information. So go ahead and do that if you have the free time to include that into any of your file data sources subgraph. I've deployed this subgraph already, and I have it right here. This is our workshop. And I just want to go through really quickly the queries, as you can see. Let's see, let's refresh. I was playing around with this earlier. Okay. So we're getting all of the subgraph information that I have created earlier. One thing that I'd like to do is just quickly just go through and show you how you could do that bean search. And this is the full text search. Let's just say anything with the word green in it. And I want to know the ID, image, and name. And let's just go through every single trait type and every single value of this and just go through the first 10 of those right there. And the first 10, with anywhere there's green, anywhere in the metadata, this will pop up. And you can see green right there. So green was brought in, and now we have the ID right there. And then we also have the image, and we have all of that. And the first 10 are right there. So it's very powerful. The first time you actually do deploy a file data sources subgraph, it will take about 20 to 30 minutes to fully information can be brought in, but the off-chain will take a little bit longer. So just know that when you deploy this first. That's why I pre-deployed this and wanted this ready beforehand. But yes, feel free to start playing around with the subgraph that I created right here for you guys. It is this subgraph, and from there, you can start seeing how powerful the metadata search can be, the bean search, and then also see the user and see exactly which tokens they have. You can do the reverse lookup, all of that brought in through this file data source graph. Let me check the questions. No questions right now. So I will leave it here right now. Actually, I do want to bring in the data edge contract because I think that's really, really cool. But any questions, no questions so far? Let's go into the presentation again. The high-level overview of what we did. Yes, you want to know your event and know your IPFS metadata. That's really important. You connect those two in your subgraph, releasing the triggering, the templating, the IPFS metadata. You're going to handle that correctly because it is JSON file. So you have to potentially change your mappings depending on the JSON file itself. And like I said, the on-chain events trigger IPFS file search in parallel. Previously, which was and still operational in some subgraphs, I'm seeing there's IPFS cat. That is being deprecated at this point, and we're moving on to file data sources. It's still operational for sure, but the future is file data sources. So previously, if a IPFS file was needed, it would stop the subgraph, and the search would begin for the IPFS file. But right now, with IPFS being searched through file data sources, the subgraph does not stop. It continues on, and that is really powerful to have, where you could have parallel indexing, where you have your IPFS file being searched for, as well as your on-chain information being searched for, and your subgraph does not stop. And that is a big feature of file data sources. Like I said, it can take a little bit of time for NFT metadata to be gathered, or any metadata, IPFS metadata to be gathered on initial deploy, so give it time, and then full text search is amazing. The next steps, this is the data edge contract, which I think you guys should take a look at. Essentially what it is if you are going to send a message to a smart contract, it will emit that message as an event. So it's just essentially a way to create a trigger for your file data sources subgraph to really begin working on dynamic hashes. So if you send it a hash that you would like it to begin that you'd like to emit as an event, you can do that. You send it a message, and then from there, it will be able to trigger your subgraph to programmatically search for different hashes and different bits of information. I hard-coded it, but what this does unlock is dynamic potential for your subgraph to have different hashes and much more power. And that's just something you could do for your next build, which I did include in the repo for you guys to use. And this is in Craig Federer's blog post. He does bring this up. Very, very cool stuff. Two things that I do want to preview, that I got permission to preview from Leo, who's worked very hard on developing file data sources. GraphNode 2.0 will allow off-chain data source to trigger another off-chain data source. So if we are going right now to use our subgraph as a on-chain, it will look at on-chain event emission to then trigger a templating of a IPFS search. That's great. Well, what happens if we want to trigger that from an off-chain file creation and then have that be the trigger for the templating of our search? That's the next release that they're working on, which is the use cases abound with that. It's purely off-chain, triggering off-chain, very cute, cool. And then another cool thing that I want to announce is that Arweave is next. We have IPFS supported currently. Arweave is coming, and then off-chain to off-chain is coming. Really, really cool stuff. And this is it. If you guys would like to scan this and post this, I'm a QR code lover. And learning about file data sources is, for me, teaching file data sources is something I'm passionate about. I think having the graph be a real solution for both on-chain and on-chain and off-chain events, data, off-chain and on-chain data is incredibly powerful for me, and I know for others. And so to get the word out there, getting file data sources out there, I think that's super duper important, that the world needs to know that file data sources is operational for IPFS, and file data sources is going to be really an important feature for all dApps out there who are looking to integrate off-chain and on-chain information. So that is it, everyone. So I just want to thank you for your time. Any questions? No questions. That's it. And I'll pass the microphone back to those out there. I think Kevin, are you there, Kevin? Just want to check. Awesome,
Yep.
You're there.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank
you so much for that.
Yes, of course. Oh, Matthew Darwin just wanted to note, file data sources does not work with substreams. Great note there, Matthew Darwin. Thank you so much. It is working with subgraphs, and that is an important note there. So thank you for the time, everyone. Thank you for joining in, and I look forward to helping you guys out in any way that I can, anytime that you guys need help.
Thanks, Marcus. I know you have to run, but does anyone have any last questions if you got time, Marcus?
Yeah. I'll be around here and chat for another few minutes here if anyone wants to drop questions. So yes, feel free to hang out and ask any questions. But yes, I'll be hanging out around the 30-minute mark.
Great. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Great. So yeah, thank you guys, everyone, for coming in. Does anyone have anything else that they wanted to talk about, or any questions that you guys wanted to ask? Happy to use this time. We kind of went a little fast today. Does anyone have anything they'd like to bring up, or any questions? Or just bring up something about the graph? Great. Awesome. Well, if there's no more questions, I thank you guys for coming on today. And yeah, I look forward to catching you guys next. We will have a bunch of sessions lined up. They're not in the calendar yet, but we'll get them added over the next week and get those put up there. We got some really cool people that are going to be coming on. We're going to have Alex from Streaming Fast. We're going to have Alex from Spyglass Labs talking about some substream stuff with something called hot dogs, which is actually quite interesting. And we're also going to have Graph Client. Chris from Edge Node is going to come on and talk about that. So there's a lot of cool stuff. So please be sure to come back every Thursday. And yeah, appreciate it, guys. You guys have a good night or day. See ya.